He said, oh, I'm not going to touch you here if you call me frat boy again. However, when we leave this place, drifting away from him, literally, they don't want wahala, they don't want problem. He also stated in his confessional that he's a gullible person. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Before we continue, this is a spoiler alert. If you're yet to see the Squid Game, the challenge, I advise you have to see it before watching. However, if you still choose to stay, just know there's going to be some spoilers because we are going to talk about that movie. Yes, the Squid Game, the challenge, unlike the movie itself, it is like a reality show, which means that contestants were picked all around the world to contest for the grand prize of over $4 million. The settings, the entire game plan, it's going to be exactly how the original movie was. Difference is in this one, nobody's going to be unalived, nobody's going to be left, unlike the original one. And also they use the black ink kind of to replace the red that comes out when one is unalived for this as well. And there were a little bit of twists and tricks here and there, which I really loved because it made the game to not be predictable, because we are very sure some of the contestants must have seen the Squid Game before actually applying for this, and so have gone to do their research or probably practiced, rehearsed, you know, just to make sure they perfect the game. Just like the movie, they had to mimic the way each contestants were picked, which is individual contestants were just waiting outside on the street, waiting for the Squid Game people to come pick them up. You could see them waiting in different streets in different cities, and that was cool, trying to actually mimic or do the same thing that was in the original. But unlike the original, they were obviously getting kidnapped, they didn't even know where they were going to. But this one, like we said, is based off reality, but just to make sure they do exactly or follow the pattern of the original movie. I think that is what the challenge was about, trying to just follow exactly how the original movie was. The players, contestants were picked, and then the first place they appeared in was going to be for the first game, which is the green light, red light. In total, they had 454 contestants, and these contestants were going to play the famous red light, green light, the game where the doll turns its head and starts singing, and the moment it turns back, all players have to stop, and if there is any movement, that player is just quickly gets eliminated. The players were told the rules, and then the game started, and immediately that game started, you could see that a lot of people were already moving. There were a lot of movements, they were getting eliminated, the black ink. But there was this particular one that this contestant was squatting. This contestant was squatting, and at that moment I really felt pity for her because she was crying literally, and that was still a freeze. At the end of the day, she just gave up herself. I really felt pity for her, but at the same time, it looked like it was a short time frame. So some of the contestants had come out to say the pauses in the show in real time was way longer, and the pauses sometimes took 30 to 45 minutes. I don't know how true it is, but if that is true, it explains why that contestant had to give up. In these games, you can see that we had different styles. There was player 232, who is an old man, and he reminded the viewers of the old man in the original game. You remember the old man that almost got to the finals? Yeah, that said he had tumor on his brain. Exactly. So in this challenge, I think the players were carefully selected, some for their uniqueness and maybe some reminding us of older character. There's also an old lady, player 302, and her son, player 301, which is quite interesting because they had a relationship. There's also a player that showed up with his best friend, but his best friend got eliminated in the green light red light show. The squat that the player had to give up reminded me so much of when the main character in the original Squid Game was about to fall. That moment where he was caught, somebody held him behind. That reminded me of that moment. Unfortunately for this player in the challenge, there was nobody to really support her and she had to give up. After the game, the players were shown their dormitory, which also mimics the exact setting of the dormitory for the original Squid Game. The players were also informed that there will be dormitories, shows, and also tests, and these tests will give players the opportunity to either advance to the next stage or to even get eliminated, or a chance to eliminate their co-player as well. And for me, I just feel like, okay, this twist is really nice because remember, in the original there was no dormitory test, but players got violent at some point, and they were even against each other, trying to unalive each other during sleeps and all, fighting, cheating, just doing anything to win. But again, I think because this is just a reality show, they needed something to improvise that, because nobody will want to unalive anybody, and outrightly nobody will want to cheat to the extreme, because of course public reputation as well. So bringing this twist of dormitory test was actually very nice. The players were also informed of their numbers reducing to 259 after the first game. Each player amounted to $10,000. So when a player leaves, $10,000 is added to the big piggy bank. The money kept dropping, and that was the ginger. Because they had seen the original Squid Game, of course they thought that the games would be arranged in the same order that the games were arranged and played in the original Squid Game. So you could see player 432, you know, with his intimidating personality, he'll be doing press up, push up, was spending so much time and so much energy practicing for the tug of war, way more than any other game. He was more about the physical strength. But again, this is a game. This is a game of not just a game of test, it's also game of test, mental test, a game of your personality generally, how you see people, how you behave is how you are being seen. I thought so much energy in trying to do press up, push-ups wasn't really necessary, but I mean, they were all there. Other players too were clicking, forming cliques, forming alliances, which is a good thing, because in this kind of game you expect the worst, right? The first show had happened in the closet, where player 101 and player 134 were peeling off carrots, and they were just randomly having conversations while doing that. Whilst doing the show, they were informed that they have to pick a player that they will either want to advance to the next game or eliminate. And of course, I wasn't surprised they decided to eliminate, because the more the players decreases, the more the money that gets into the piggy bank increases, and then the more chances you are to get to the finals. They decided to go with either player 200 and player 432, and the reasons were really valid. The one for the 200 was because immediately they had finished the red light green light challenge, he had just gone and started making friends with almost everybody in the room, and to them it was like, you're trying to make friends with everybody, which is quite understandable. He was trying to be in the good books of everyone, so that when issues of elimination comes, he won't be the first. But probably it was too obvious, and then they saw through that. And then for player 432, he just had this, he was the star boy from the beginning. Boy had this intimidating personality. Some of the players even went ahead to describe him as the ringleader. Some described him as being rude, being proud, being forming clique. Just, I think he had this intimidating personality, and he just didn't want to. It was so intimidating that it was glaring. From afar the players could see it, and he didn't really care what anybody thought about him. I mean, even in his confessionals, he stated that that is his personality. He compared himself to Jesus Christ and said, oh, Jesus Christ had challenges, Jesus Christ faced challenges, he too, he faced challenges. He has always been like that. While I appreciate his personality, I feel like for the beginning it was too glaring. Once you shine, once you are out there and the other players can now see you, you've literally made yourself a target, which was what he did. He wasn't even bothered about how other players sensed him. For him, he was just being himself. But at the end of the day, these two players were also informed that the results will be released the next morning. But the next morning, they were actually informed that whilst they were there, the first dormentary test has actually taken place, and they were informed of the players' decisions to eliminate player 200, and that was it. That was when the players knew game on, the game has started. And the pattern was tests, dormentary test game, dormentary test game. The players were asked to assemble for the second game. The second game is the diagonal game. The players were asked to assemble in 4 rows, and then from the 4 rows, the first 4 players have to go inside while there is a screen that shows other players what is going inside. So the first 4 players that went inside were all asked to pick their shapes. The different shapes were circle, triangle, star, and umbrella. So literally they are supposed to choose a shape, and whatever shape they choose affects their entire row. So if a player picks circle, the row he came from is going to be circle all round. And so these players had difficulties trying to agree on who's going to choose which shape. They were given 2 minutes to choose, and they kept going back and forth, and that is how their time exhausted, their time lapsed without making a decision. And I love this game because once you cannot reach an agreement, all of you automatically get eliminated. Because these 4 have been eliminated, the next first 4 were asked to go in, and the same thing occurred. And I was just like, these people, is it that you people don't want to play the game? I mean, it's even better for one of you to take the hard shape than for all of you to get eliminated. It just goes to show your character, that you are greedy, you are selfish. And I mean, or just agree on a game. In 2 minutes you can agree on a game to play and use it to decide who goes for which shape. But the second set, I wouldn't really blame them because they had actually agreed to do a race, but I felt it was unfair because there was a lady, and then I think there were like 3 guys, and then they ran. Obviously they will run faster than the female, so before they could get there, there were a mix-up of who takes which shape. Everybody was obviously avoiding the umbrella because of the obvious reasons. It has this very slim handle, and then these lines that is difficult to bring out perfectly, cut out perfectly from the candy that will be given to them. So these people had difficulties as well and could not reach a decision in 2 minutes and were obviously eliminated as well. And then that now brought us to the 3rd row. So these people already seen from the projected screen what was happening inside and how potential representatives were getting eliminated because they could not reach a decision. The next row had to go. Now before it got to the turn of the rest row, remember Starboy 432 was the next person in front of his row. Then there was one other person in the as well. 299 is really an emotional person because immediately he turned red and he had already started crying. Which I get, I mean anxiety, but 432 wasn't having it. He was like, man up bro, you're not supposed to cry. And I mean yes, we understand it's a game, but you can't tell people how to react to things. So I think that goes to show the character of 432 as well. He doesn't really care, he cares about himself. He was like man up, and I think at that point where 299 broke down, he was crying, he was already vulnerable, but at the same time it wasn't the right time to show his vulnerability because it was used against him. Immediately, all 432 asked his team members, what will you people do if I choose the umbrella somewhere? Like they wouldn't like it, they wouldn't want to. And one person was like they wouldn't care. So other people kept rallying around their representatives as well. 299's team had told him, whatever you do, do not take the umbrella. In whatever you do, please do not take the umbrella. And they went inside, and the moment they got inside, 432 started doing his thing, started doing his magic. I don't know how he did it, but it worked. They stood and he just asked 299, that was vulnerable a while ago, that was crying a while ago, that do you want to go? Do you want to go home? Do you want this to work? Do you want this to work? And was like yes. And the rest of them was like, okay, you know what, we'll just choose, let's go, let's pick its shape, 1 2 3 4. And then they pointed at the umbrella, asked 299 to go there, and then they all ran to different shapes. 299 was just looking. I think he lost it. He was not really well put together, probably because he had cried earlier on. He wasn't thinking straight. He kept telling them that okay, that he would, if he picks the umbrella, they should assure him they will help assist his role members. They will spit on the candies of the role members, because when you spit on it, it gets softer and easier for you to cut out the shape. And they were like, oh yes, we but 432 even went as far as assuring him that I will assist you, and shook hands with him. And at that point was when everybody just got angry, like I don't think the anger was him picking the umbrella, but the anger was this decision behind picking the umbrella. Why are you shaking hands with it? You are not a kid. If you even convince a kid that I will do this for you, they will know it's like this is a competition. So where is the assist? Give somebody spit, give somebody saliva. I don't know, but from where I'm from, I don't understand. Are you going to run so short of saliva that you need somebody to give you saliva? Because if it's just you using the needle, you can't assist somebody to use the needle. And then immediately they shook hands. He had agreed and went forward to touch the umbrella symbol to show that he had accepted to choose the umbrella. Immediately you could see the smile on 432's face when the voice of the Squid Game came up and said they cannot assist each other in the game. You could see that look, that smile of fulfillment in him, knowing that his hands are tied, he cannot assist. Not like he's going to assist anyways, but you could see that smile on his face. 299's role were devastated, but regardless, they started playing the game. The first set to play was Seko. They went in and they played, regardless of the fact that Seko was the simplest. Some people still got emulated. It was just a few of them that scaled through. And the next was Triangle, which was 432's team. 432 was able to scale through as well, and then subsequent teams. And when it came to Umbrella was when immediately his teammates entered. You could see them cursing him, calling him different names. But I actually like his fighting spirit, because regardless of the name calling and how he knew his teammates felt about him, he didn't let that get in the way. He tried as much as he can to cut out his umbrella, but he was doing this gag. I don't know if it's gagging, but I think he was trying to bring out speed, or that is how he is when he has anxieties. He even said this in his confessionals that yeah, that is how he is. He also stated in his confessional that he's a gullible person. So I don't know if that is why the organizers of the show picked him, because obviously before you get picked, you send you do series of interviews and send a short video explaining yourself. So probably that is the personality they saw in him that made them to take him. I don't know, but I mean, he kept doing that thing, and for me, to be honest, I couldn't really. It was a little bit off for me, but yeah, I could get how he is. But regardless, I was still hoping he scales through and probably face the wrath of his role members after the game. But unfortunately, he missed it, and that is how he got eliminated quite a number of his team members were also eliminated because it is the toughest ship to cut out, and they went back in. A few of them that got it went back in before the time, and they were all happy. That is game number 2 down, and many more dormentary and other games to go. And then it gets trickier. More cliques, more alliances are being formed, more friendships. Of course, we have a mother and son there, which is player 302 and player 301. They are bonding, they're discussing. So then that is their clique. We also have a clique called the Gwangu Gang, which comprises of the old man I referenced at the beginning of the video, and other players as well. I think there were a team of 5. They call themselves the Gwangu Gang. We also have player 432 and his clique. One player also made reference to player 432 as a frat boy. Yeah, we're going to come to that because that was almost an issue. They showed inside the closet where they were working. Player 432 actually said something to player 194, and player 194 had actually responded with "alright, frat boy." Now, prior to even checking dictionary, I didn't know the definition of frat boy. However, I knew that in the context it was used, it didn't really mean something nice. It probably meant something insultive. And player 432 with his big body had said 194 should wait. If he's not scared, he's not going to do anything. If he comes towards him, will he wait? And the other one said yes. As I walked towards him, and he said, "Oh, I'm not going to touch you here if you call me frat boy again. However, when we leave this place," you know, when that was a subtle threat, yes. And player 194 said something along the line of "alright, frat boy." I don't know, I heard "alright, frat boy," but I mean, Netflix subtitle showed me probably alright, probably. So I really don't know what came out. I understand almost everyone doesn't like the guts of player 432. However, going ahead to insult him unprovoked, I don't think I think it was wrong. I think in this particular scenario, player 194 was wrong to have referred to him as a frat boy. And to be honest with you, even because as the show is going on, the players are reacting to the episodes, and you can tell from player 194's TikTok videos that he is unapologetic about calling player 434 a frat boy. I mean, so that is it. Moving on, a telephone was brought into the dormitory and placed there, and then some of the players kept hovering around it, wondering what's the mystery behind it. And particularly player 194 was one of those that were hovering around it, standing very close to it, waiting for it to ring. And that was where, as this was going on, other players were just having their comments about the telephone. Player 4 is of the view that he wants to pick the phone, he wants to eliminate somebody. After that brief confrontation between himself and 432, he had decided that if he gets the chance, he is going to eliminate 432. Although this is also how other players feel, but he was really vocal. He even went ahead as telling few players about it, and then he decided that if he picks the call and they say eliminate someone, he's going to eliminate 432. The phone finally rings, and then he picks the call. Immediately he picks, he's informed that he should not hang up the phone. However, he's going to be given a treat. What we saw was the treat coming in, and him taking out of the sheets, and other players just grabbing other things that were inside. The treat was a burger and fries, and other players, player 097 dragged the burger, and he couldn't really have much. After that treat, what we saw again was the phone ringing again, and player 194 went ahead to pick the call again. And in my head, I'm like, this boy, at least allow somebody else to pick the call. Why are you picking the call? Why are you the one picking the call? and that's when everybody was hovering around him, and he's informed again as usual he cannot drop the call. But because he has picked, he has risked the chance of being possibly eliminated. However, if he can convince someone else to pick the call, to take the phone from him for the expiration of 2 minutes, then he won't be eliminated. He could have just pretended, smiled, and said, okay, the next person, they said I should hand the phone to the next person. I mean, I don't know, but he should have tricked them. But immediately he heard that, he had said, wow, or like he had this surprised look on his face, and that made other players to start just staying away from him. I mean, drifting away from him. Literally, they don't want wahala, they don't want problem. Then they started shifting from this boy, and he was just standing there. He didn't know what to do, and they were like, something is wrong because of his facial expression that changed. He went about asking people, do you want chocolate? Don't you want chocolate? Don't you want chocolate? But the mistake he made was he never met his friends. He was meeting random people, and that prompted their curiosity. At the expiration of 2 minutes, nobody really agreed to, nobody bought his whole do you want chocolate agenda that he was pushing, and that is how he picked the call again, and he was told that he has been eliminated. In as much as he became annoying to 432, I really wish he had lasted longer in the game. I wanted to see his potentials in the game. For the next game, the contestants were ushered out of the dormitory room to the playground, where they were asked to group themselves in I think 8, and they started grouping themselves. But because they have seen the implication of not having groups on time or not making decisions on time, you could see how some of them were panicking when they were more than the numbers they were asked to group themselves. I think they asked them to group themselves in 8. So you could see them saying go here, go here. For 432, he was so sure this next game is going to be tug of war. So he had picked all his master marshal, all his able-bodied friends, all his friends that they've been rehearsing, doing press up, push up together with inside the dormitory room. He carried them. He carried all of them. So annoying, because for him it's just all about strength, and that was where he missed it. Why are you after the physical strength? I mean, if you somebody that have watched the original Squid Game, you would see it's not obviously all about strength, except the tug of war. I don't see where strength came to play. Somewhere even skills. This one gathered all his friends, and at the end of the day, it turned out to be a Warship Game. Yes, the players were introduced to the game group by group and were told it is a Warship Game. Each group have to pick a captain and a lieutenant, and then other members have to pick a boat. They have to strategically arrange where their boats will be, and then each captain and lieutenant let's fire their missile from their ends, and if it hits complete boats, that boat sinks, and then that is the point for the next team, until the team with the most sunken boats loses, alongside all the people in those boats that sunk are eliminated alongside the captain and the lieutenant. I mean, it makes sense because in real life, I think this applies to ships and aircraft. If the ship is sinking or the aircraft is about to crash, the pilot or the captain has to be one of the last people to leave. However, those members of the group, the losing group, that were not hit by any missile will stand the chance of advancing to the next game. And Starboy 432 didn't know how to play this game. He didn't know how to play this game. And somebody else in his team, I think a lady, had actually said she would want to be the leader. She was more familiar with the game than himself. But even while they were playing this game, this 432, because in his boat, the missile hit the person that he had the same boat with, but it was remaining him. And this boy, instead of him to pray and be saying, oh, let this my captain be able to win this for us. Instead, he was saying, oh, I don't think our captain knows what she's doing. I don't think she knows what she's doing. Are you Mr. Perfect? Every time, if it is not you, you have problem with how the person is handling it. And I think for somebody that didn't even understand the game and how it is played at first, because the game had to do mental calculation and even skill as well as experience too, because some people that opted to be captains, they've either played the game from childhood before, or they have been playing the game. They are very, very familiar with the game. And I felt like his complaints were not making sense. Just pray or do something. But at the end of the day, his boat sunk and his team lost. I was thinking Starboy is the golden boy, is the diamond of the season. I was thinking he was going to go far. I thought he would get to final, but like I said earlier on, the mistake he made was making himself the target from the beginning by being all about himself, being very vocal and being selfish, self-centered, and just really thinking about himself, having these intimidating personalities that made other players to hate his guts. That made him a target. That made everybody to put an eye on him. The team that stood out for me was TJ's team, player 182. He had said he plays it a lot, and also assured his teammates that nobody was going to get eliminated. They should trust him, and he played this game so well that no boat sunk. No boat. That was the only team that no boat sunk and were able to win. All members scaled through, advanced to the next stage. They were so happy. They were extremely happy, and he was so grateful. At some point, he even broke down in tears and thanking his wife, saying it was his wife's spirit that was leading him to pick the missile he was hitting. He was firing, that was hitting the other team, the opponent, that was hitting the opponent's boat. And that was a nice game. That was a clean victory, and that was the first time I really saw a team unite. For the Warship game, 182 players played it, but they all went down to 73 after the game was played. Other players were already eliminated, and it came down to 73 people. They were also informed that there were going to be 2 dormentary tests, and the 2 dormentary tests are going to be carried out. For the first dormentary test, each player was supposed to pick a player that they would like to be eliminated. All players were going to vote. So a device to insert the number of the player you want to get eliminated was placed in front, and then all the players were assembled in a row. Immediately they were asked to do that, one player had actually said, oh, he would prefer if they do it by voting, and because of that he automatically became a target for other players because they disagreed with him, and his number was one of the first numbers to go up there. Yes. His number was one of the first numbers to go. This game is very tricky. I think maybe because it's a reality show, it's messing with their brain. And it's funny because it is a reality show, but they are reacting exactly how the players in the original movie reacted. But that was a movie, that was scripted. This is not scripted. They were not asked to behave this way. They are just behaving because of circumstances where they find themselves, and the fact that they are all competing for the grand prize. These players, when they are given tasks like this, they go ahead to use different reasons for eliminating or voting for who they want to vote for. So for player 302, which is the old lady, she had earlier on spoken to a player, and this Italian player, I'll put his number on the screen if I could remember. She had earlier on spoken to this player and offering him apple, and he just said he wasn't interested in apples, and that had gotten to her. For her, it was him being rude to her. So because of that, she didn't insert his number. Instead, she clicked on a fresh new face. So she clicked on his number, and the fresh new face automatically appeared on the board where the faces of the people that their numbers have been inserted shows. And then other players, because of fear of them being the person to bring out new people, were just by themselves voting for the ones that were already existing there. But if quite a few of them had gone ahead to bring out new person's face. But when it got to this other player's turn, where that player 302 had put up there, he had to be dramatic about it. He went there, looked at the screen, and then walked towards where the lady was, looked at her number, and even told her, I just want to be sure it's your number. I'm like, how dramatic can you be? That was funny, but that was annoying, and that just confirms what she had said earlier, that he was rude, or he is rude to her. Like, he had gone ahead to pick her number and inserted it there. Other players' number had come up as well, and at the end of the day, the most voted 3 players were announced. At the end of the day, the person that the old lady had put up for being rude to her, the person that also suggested that they voted, that they all made him the target, and a third person were eliminated. After that, player 232 and player 243, who were part of the Gwagu gang, remember these people had formed gangs and cliques. There's a gang called Gwagu gang, which Gwagu means best friend in Korea according to them. The Gwagu gang consists of the old man who I said was giving me a vibe that of the old man in the original Squid Game. Yes, remember, he is player 232. Himself and one of his gang member, player 243, had been asked to go do shows in the showroom. Upon getting there, they came across those 2 squares. One was red and one was blue. If you cast your mind back to the original Squid Game, remember the first game that the original character played with the Squid Game member at the railway station, where if the character loses, he has to give 10,000 to the man, and then when the man loses, the man has to give him. But the character didn't have, so he ended up taking slaps back to back. He ended up taking slaps for him losing, and those slaps were the 10,000 payment for him losing to the Squid Game person. If you could remember that game where they have to throw the square shaped cubes, not really cube but flat square shaped paper on the ground. On the rules of the game, they decide, I think, facing up or facing down, and then whoever wins gets that game, that particular game. That was the game that they found in the showroom. Immediately player 232 saw it, he immediately said Dark G. I don't think I'm pronouncing it well, but he recognized the game because he's familiar with the game and he plays it a lot. Unlike player 243, he was a little bit lost. He doesn't understand the game. He doesn't know the game. And I think one of the reasons that is not a major game in the Squid Game. That was just the game they used in picking the participants in the original Squid Game. Player 232 started teaching him how to play the game, and they continued on and on like that until they heard the game person, the voice of the game person, telling them that player 243 had lost the game. At that point, one of the game master walked in, and the ones on red walked in and handed a candy to the old man for winning the game. I was so happy for player 243. That's how he would have been eliminated if it came to elimination. I mean, you are in a reality show. You came to compete for a grand prize, and then you walk into the showroom and just saw a game you are not familiar with and decide to be playing, unless they were asked to play it, which I doubt. I think the essence of guiding them to that showroom was for the old man to recognize the game and opt to play it voluntarily without even being told to play it. So remember, earlier on they had actually mentioned to all the players that they were going to have 2 dormentary games. They played the first one, and then it was time for the second one. For the second one, they asked 5 players to volunteer themselves. Player 229, player 183, alongside 3 other players, had volunteered themselves. A table was in front of them, in front of all the players, and on the table were placed 6 boxes. They asked all 5 players to stand behind each box. Each box carries either for them to eliminate themselves or for them to eliminate one other player. The first player opened his box, and then the instruction popped up. The instruction was for him to eliminate a player, and which he did. His reason for eliminating this player was that this player had not spoken to him or bonded with him since they have been in the dormitory and since they started the game, and that reason was valid. Although I don't think they are obliged to actually give reasons, but some players go ahead to give reasons. He gave his reason, and that player was automatically eliminated and escorted out of the place. And then the next player was also asked to eliminate someone as well. And then for the third player, he was asked to eliminate himself. Like, he was told he was eliminated out of the game, which was one of the prior information that was given to them when they volunteered. And automatically he got eliminated. So sad, but he had to leave. And then the fourth player, the fourth volunteer, and he was asked to advance in the game, which means he's automatically advancing to the next game. It got to player 229's turn. This player, this particular player, we all thought Starboy player 433 was the villain. That boy was just being pompous, was just being all over the place, making people feel intimidated. This player 229, she was crying. She cried, shed tears. In fact, she cried to a point that I was feeling pity for her. I was like, oh, what's going on? What's going on with this player? She cried. After crying, she rolled out her instruction. And one thing about tears, once you're vulnerable, you tend to make the most stupid decisions. You just make emotional decisions. You just make decisions that that ordinarily, I feel like if the player did not cry, they won't have made it. They will have had their head and their brains put together to make a better decision. But this particular player was an exception. She had cried, she had wept, she wept, whatever she was doing. And then when she wrote out her instruction, the instruction was for her to eliminate 3 players. And then after thinking, crying, being all dramatic, she came and said, okay, her first player she is going to eliminate is because he has an advantage in the next game. And then she mentioned the player that was one of the volunteers with her that just got advanced from his instruction to the next game. She eliminated him. Yes, she eliminated him. He should go. It was so shocking, even for me as a viewer, and I'm sure for other viewers. It was so shocking. That is the most calculated decision a player had made in the game. And then for the next 2 players, she had mentioned that she is eliminating them because they are in an alliance, they are in a group, they are in a clique. And then she mentioned the 2 players that had played the Daji game earlier on, the Daji game in the showroom, which is player 232 and player 243, the old man and his alliance. She eliminated both of them, 3 people. And from her selection of eliminations, it was brutal. I didn't see it coming. Other players didn't see it coming. Viewers didn't see it coming. Nobody saw it coming. And considering the fact that this was somebody that was crying as if she didn't know what to do, as if she was lost, it just goes to show that her head is in the game. That was the most calculated decision. I think it wasn't emotional, it was more calculated, more strategic decision a player was making in the game, in my own opinion. And I have to give it to her. Player 229, that girl, she's a player indeed. She is the villain because nobody saw it coming. That was the end of the second dormitory test for the day. After the 2 dormitory tests and the 1 short task that happened, the players were informed again that they need to volunteer 5 people for a chore. Yeah, and the 5 people needed to volunteer themselves basically. So 5 players opted to volunteer themselves, while others were scared of the fear of them self-eliminating like them eliminating themselves with the volunteer, like had happened earlier on in one of the dormitory tests. So they opted not to volunteer, while the 5 that volunteered went to the showroom. There they found a baskets of oranges and then jars. They were instructed to fill in the jars with orange juice, squeeze out the juice and fill in the jars with those juice in 30 minutes. And they got to work. They started doing it. Of course, they did it diligently because they were not so sure if this was going to be an elimination task or if it was just a random short task. Before 30 minutes, they were able to finish, and at the end, they went back to join the others in the dormitory, where it was announced that the task they were given was successful, and because of that, all the players will be given a treat. They were so happy. I was also happy for them because at least for the first time they are getting a treat, and then the treat was announced to them that it was going to be a picnic. Yes, a picnic. And the next thing we saw was the game masters rolling in picnic baskets and mats for them, just to give them picnic setting. Players paired themselves in twos for the picnic. So obviously you want to dine with your best friend. The mom and son, that is 301 and 302, were together. 229 was with her friend as well. Other players were basically all players were with their friends or people they have alliance or friends with, and they were enjoying. Immediately they opened the baskets. The first thing they saw was the juice they had squeezed out. The ones that volunteered, one of them was like, the juice, it's the juice. They were just so happy that what they had done earlier, the task they had carried out, was what was even given to them as treat. So they enjoyed their picnic, but at the end of the picnic, something happened. They had raised it, and at the bottom of the basket, they realized that there were small bags in it, only for them to see that those bags had marbles in them. So there were 2 bags, and each person had a bag, and inside was marble. The people that saw the marble first was 302 and player 301, which is the mother and the son, and immediately it dawned on them, it clicked. This is because the marble game had also been played in the previous original Squid Game as well, so they already knew what to expect. Like, they already knew they had to go against each other for the marble game, and I had to give it up again for Netflix and for the Squid Game people, because if they had told them to pick their friends, they wouldn't have agreed. So the best way to make them to pair themselves with their friends is to give them a treat. So whoever came up with this idea to make them to dine with their loved one, the person is a genius, because that worked. They had to go against, they knew instantly they had to go against their friends, their loved ones. The mother and the son had to go against each other, and I don't think they ever thought of it or saw that coming soon when it's not close to the final. And that's where episode 5 ended. So let me know what your thought is from episode 1 to 5, the stars of this episode, what you thought about them, what you think about the relationship of the mother and the son, player 302 and 301. What do you think about player 232 and 243, the Guagu gang? And then what do you think about 243 and his braggadocious attitude, his all intimidating personality? What do you think of the decisions of the players so far, and what do you think of the decision player 229 made during one of the dormitory tests challenge? Generally, overall, how do you think the elimination process went? Do you think it was fair? Just let me know in the comments. But for me, I think life is not fair. Player 432 rightly said that, I mean, people say life is not fair, that to him, he thinks life is fair. And I think the definition of fair at this point, it varies. It depends on individual perspective of what they define as being fair to them. But what I see in the game is what we see in real life, what we experience in real life. What is used to, the yard used in measuring for this person is different. It's a different yardstick that will be used to measure for somebody else. So basically that is my take on it. I don't want this video to be so lengthy, so I'm going to talk about the remaining games in the subsequent video. Hope you watch that one. Bye.